Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Hey, it's Drew, and I just wrapped up recording an episode with Sarah Kennedy, who is the CMO of Marketo, and I really think you're going to enjoy this one. We do the Renegade Rapid Fire at the beginning. We get deep into what it takes to first build the department and then get to a big idea and how you know when you have the big idea because you just present one to the CEO and it works out. So give it a listen. I think you're really going to enjoy the show. My guest today is Sarah Kennedy, CMO of Marketo, which she joined in October 2017. Prior to Marketo, Sarah spent 10 years at Sabre Corporation, the company best known for its airline booking technology. She is a globally recognized thought leader on emerging technology, loyalty, and customer experience, and sits on the board of Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International and Tech Fort Worth, a non-profit startup accelerator. She holds a BBA from Baylor University and an MBA specializing in marketing from the University of Texas at Dallas. And, according to sources, in her spare time, Sarah is an avid basketball player. So, is that right, by the way, Sarah?
That's correct.
All right. So we are going to jump through hoops.
All right.
This is a slam dunk interview. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really brought that full circle. I like it.
Thank you. Yes. Puns are us. Anyway, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you for having me.
So on this episode, we're going to test a new segment called Renegade Rapid Fire, in which we get to know the guest really fast. Doesn't mean you have to talk fast, but just some quick answers. So are you ready to go, Sarah?
I'm ready. And I talk fast, too, just by default. So warning ahead.
Perfect. Okay. So what's your definition of marketing?
I'm going to be simple here, and I'm going to say engagement.
Okay. What is the primary role of the CMO?
To hire people smarter, faster, better than they are all around them.
Build the team. Get the right people on the bus. Okay. What is your favorite part of being a CMO?
Honestly, spending time with my team thinking about big picture stuff.
Big picture stuff. Okay, what's your least favorite part of the job?
My inbox and my calendar.
Inbox and calendar, yes. Life would be great if we didn't have any meetings, right?
Yeah.
We could actually get stuff done.
Right, exactly.
Somebody fix that, please. Okay. Yeah. What are the top priorities for you as a CMO in your first 100 days?
Yeah, there were a long list, but the top three for me were, number one, it was just getting an understanding of the team and the talent mix and getting the right roles filled, or at least starting to fill the right roles that had been open for a while. The second is our brand. So just really reinventing and looking at a refresh of the Marketo brand in a way that still, it has reverence and respect for the great legacy that comes with this brand, the community and the following, but to take it to that next level. And otherwise for me, is honestly just getting my arms around the business and the industry, and spending time with customers. Those were the really top three priorities for me in my first 100 days.
Very cool. So skipping around a bit, what was the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh gosh, this is actually from a former CMO, or not CMO, actually CEO, at Sabre, who told me, gave me a lot of great career advice, but the best was jump out of the plane and find your parachute on the way down. And I'm sure that wasn't his original quote, but the sentiment of never being afraid to jump first when you're given the opportunity, and you'll learn it as you go.
I love that. That's such a renegade thought. Definitely include that one. What's your proudest moment as a marketer?
Oh gosh. I've had a few. I would actually say it was I'll focus on this year actually, when this team rallied together actually to come up with the real passion and sentiment around our summit event, the theme that we came together to build an entire experience around. I think seeing them do that and go through that exercise, which is not an easy one and has a lot of pressure and a lot of opinions. I think for me, I was proud of them. And I would say just from kind of historically looking at my career, my proudest moments have been when my team has really been given the chance to shine, because that's really where we invest so much and you see so little until it happens and it clicks. And when it does, it's really a thing of pride and beauty. And it's great because it's not you doing the work, it's them really shining. So that for me would be it.
Okay. And so this is a slight twist on this, but what's the most renegade thing you've done in your career?
Oh, goodness. Good question. This may seem like a boring topic to have as a renegade answer, but actually challenging status quo during a data breach and kind of going, putting a different spin on how we think about those types of incidents that we went through at Sabre. That was, for me, I had to step up and be a voice for the customer on their behalf, all the way up to the CEO level, against all odds and against all legal counsel across internal, external, et cetera, and all the people that were experts on a topic. But I continued and pressed forward. And I think that was, for me, it was really risky, but in the end, it was the right decision.
It's really cool. I mean, crises bring out really interesting times. And as somebody once said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And it sounds like you jumped up for that opportunity. Is there a brand out there that you admire most?
I think about this a lot, and I feel like this is a boring answer, but for me, I just feel like they've brought all the elements together, and it's Airbnb, and I just have really admired what they've done, both with their, the simplicity of their visual identity, but more importantly, the story they tell, and the work that Jonathan Mildenhall did while he was there for the Belong campaign. It just transformed for me how, especially when I was working in hospitality, how people think about that experience and the sentiment and the emotion around service. And I just think Airbnb does such a great job of embodying that in their brand, start to finish, in every element.
Yeah, I really agree with you. They're very good storytellers, and they're a brand that seems to produce it, but they really understood something more meaningful than just a room and a place, right?
Right, exactly.
And they hit on it in a way that you would think, gee, I'd want to work for that company.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is amazing. So, okay, is there a recent book that you've read that made you rethink something?
So this is I guess a title that you can tell me if I'm allowed to say, but the book You Are a Badass is one that I had somebody recommend and started reading it most recently, and I loved it. It just more of the psychology of how leaders lead, and it really the nugget in there for me is more of the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we can and can't do. And it's a pretty basic concept, but for me, it was, it's just a great reminder. You kind of, no matter what stage you are in your career, it's really healthy to go back and figure out what are the inhibitors that just intellectually hold us back, and how can we break through those barriers to really achieve our truest and fullest potential.
Oh, that's cool. I hadn't heard of the book, and it sounds a little bit like some of the work that Amy Cuddy did with her sort of, trying to get people to be a little bit more courageous and power posing and just thinking it's sort of, if you think it, you believe it, or am I completely misinterpreting that? No,
you're not. It's exactly right. And it's, it's an easy read, actually. It's one of those books that's just kind of a good reminder. And actually, there's been many books over the years that I think are good things to read, especially when you're in a challenging or a transitional period. And that's definitely one of those I would add to anyone's list.
Awesome. Well, we'll include that in the show notes. So next question, will machines ever be able to do your job?
Oh, no, they would die trying. And only because they'd get tired before most CMOs would.
Right.
CMOs are the most resilient, I think, leaders on the planet, and spitballs against a battleship is what my dad used to say. So, but yeah, it's one of those things I think thought about a lot. I think it could replace certainly some of the functions, but I just think, man, this is not one of those jobs that can be fully automated ever, at least in my lifetime.
I think you're right, but had to ask. Okay, right. So if you weren't doing marketing, if you weren't a marketer, what would you be doing?
The answer is boring to this probably, but I actually probably would be an attorney, and that's for many reasons, but a water rights attorney specifically. I had this weird interest in water rights growing up in Colorado. I spent my summers actually here, which is where I am today. And it is the most valuable, priceless asset we have, natural resource on our planet, and it's one of those that is increasingly scarce. So, and it's a really weird answer to that question, but I almost went back to law school before after I got my MBA, and had thought I wanted to go into the legal profession, and decided, had a professor that recommended I do something slightly different, at least for the summer, and go try interning at a larger corporation. And I walked in the door at Sabre and did not walk back out for 10 years. Loved it. So, changed my mind.
It's very cool. And I agree with you on the water rights issue. The great wars will be ultimately fought over that. And it's just interesting that, the United States actually has the largest supply of fresh water other than one giant lake in Russia. But it will be, the commodity that matters most. So anyway, that's great. All right. Well, those are awesome answers, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Okay, we're back, and my guest is Sarah Kennedy, who is the CMO of Marketo. So you were at Sabre for 10 years. What inspired you to jump to Marketo? What was it about the challenge that was interesting to you?
Oh gosh, so many things. And I honestly, so I was probably the first millennial I knew that had stayed at any company for 5 years, much less 10, during my time at Sabre. And I always had, this nagging feeling of I need to go diversify my experience, even though I love this company and this industry and these customers. There's just nothing, like it in many cases. I just knew I had to go do something different to apply my skill set and just try out a new challenge and solve a new problem. And so I was very patient, and I started looking, just kind of poking to see what could be interesting next, and had I actually looked at this just yesterday, how long the interview process was from the first day I met Steve Lucas until I accepted the job, and it was, I think, 5 months. I met so many incredible people along the way that I had actually threw the nugget out there to say, if Marketo's CMO position ever becomes available, that's my dream job. That's one I would love to go tackle. And they remembered that about a year later when it did happen. And from the moment I met Steve, it's one of those really rare things where you can find the perfect job, you can find the perfect brand, the perfect opportunity, the perfect challenge, but it's really hard to combine that with such a powerful leader and somebody that you really aspire to go work for and can't wait to get in the door to learn from. And that combination of things just doesn't happen very often. And here it did. And that's why, Steven, just his leadership style and the way that he really brings optimism, that's such a simple thing, into the life of a business. It breathes life in such ways that you just, you would never, I think, expect outside in, and it's just contagious. And so it's been a joy and a pleasure to work for him so far and learn from him. But that was the deal sealer for me.
Cool. So it's funny. I was at Marketo Nation last year, and Steve Lucas was a speaker, and who was the first? I think it was his first summit. He was relatively new to the company, and I definitely saw what you're talking about. He just seemed like a genuine, enthusiastic, optimistic. He also looked like he was having a lot of fun.
He is every day,
which is great, and that makes such a difference. So in our in the quick rapid fire, you mentioned that you were proud of what the team had brought together. I know the theme is fearless. I'm really curious what got you there and why that theme is so important for this year's Marketo Summit.
Yeah, and it's something I hope I have the chance to share on stage as well, but just the sentiment coming in the door of what we wanted to create, the experience we wanted to embody at Summit this year, was we knew that. We just didn't have the right words to articulate it. And when I say the sentiment, we felt, we knew it was all about how do we start to take off the shackles of perfection in our industry that I think a lot of other conferences propagate. And I think there's so much just chatter out there that's all about, painting the prettiest picture of the world of a CMO. And that's just not the reality any of us live in day to day. And so I really aspired to, and I think Marketo's done a great job of this, honestly, over the past years already, but really double down on not just sharing case studies and, stories of customer success and perfection, but to give a spotlight to what we would call the pre-MO, the person who is the heir apparent and who's really in the trenches every day supporting those CMOs and making those bold, fearless decisions, or encouraging their leaders to make those bold, fearless decisions in their jobs to push our discipline and our overall industry forward as a result. And we wanted to create, it's like you and 6,000 of your closest friends, a community that for at least 3 or 4 days felt like a safe place to share and to be okay not being perfect, and that be a way and a mechanism that we can find the beauty and the imperfections in the stories, because that's where we really learn. And marketers are the greatest artists of, BS. We don't need BS upon BS to us. Like, we want to sit in a room and have real conversations. Like, we really need that. We crave that, because it can be a lonely journey in a marketing role if you are at a company that doesn't value marketing or make it a priority, especially. So we had this aspiration that we could create a safe place for people to come and share, and to do that ourselves is the first example of it, and to be okay opening the kimono in a way that shows kind of some of the warts as well as the wins, and we're going to do that for that event. But there's many more things that I think come from that theme, and it's not just a conference theme for us; it's more of our mantra for this full year. And I'm excited because I think there's just a lot of goodness that will come out of that if we can get our community to start sharing stories with one another in a more compelling way.
Well, I love the term, and it aligns with sort of what I look at in all the interviews that I've done with CMOs. I put courage as sort of the first and foremost trait of a CMO in order to sort of have the courage to really be bold, find a unique position, and sort of ignore the competition and be the best brand that they could be. And it's hard. But when I think of fearless, and if I start to go, I say fearless marketing and marketing automation, next thing I get to is a fearless marketing automator. And I'm struggling to sort of put those two together, because I know the people who do many of those implementations and so forth. So what is a fearless marketer in the context of Marketo?
Yeah, I think it's actually all about experimentation. And I know, some marketing leaders have to be fearless in just pushing for an investment in a platform like Marketo, and even sadly have to justify why engaging with customers is a critical priority for a business. And I empathize with them, because that's a hard, long slog uphill battle to fight. But when you think about just the next wave of maturity for marketers and their businesses, I think it's looking at ways that you can take risks, you can experiment, you can do testing, and try things out that others haven't, and experiment with things like AI and other technologies and capabilities through, whether it's Marketo or any other platform, trying something new and seeing what works, and being unafraid, as long as you have the right data and the gut instinct and the know-how to back it up and to go in confidently, knowing you're sometimes going to fail, and you have the right infrastructure in place to learn from that. To me, that's what it's all about, because we're trying to get to this place where we can all get back to the business we intended to be in, which is serving customers, engaging with customers, and doing that in a really meaningful, deep way. And you have to find ways to automate the parts of that process that can consume all of our time and pull us away from those things, those really critical priorities where we can have the deepest, most meaningful engagements. And you've got to experiment with ways you can automate that to create those opportunities for those engagements down the road, or at any different stage of the funnel. And so for me, I think about it as just being willing to take bold risks, to try out new tech, and to do so as a thought leader in their companies many times, who are setting the example and setting the stage for what others will follow them in doing.
Cool. Okay. So when we think about words, fearless is a great word. I can see how that could be an internal motivator as well as an external sort of promise, or certainly inspirational rallying cry. How do you make it real?
Yeah. I'll give you one example. I mean, walking in to pitch something to my CEO, who's an incredibly supportive CEO, by the way, and is probably the least, he's already there in terms of his belief in marketing, his support of me as a CMO to make a great decision about things. But even then, it's walking into a meeting and it's gut checking yourself. It's like, am I hedging? Am I not putting what I believe to be the very best recommendation forward because I'm worried about a million different things. For example, CMOs are dealing, with this 18-month tenure that's shrinking, I think yearly by months. And that's always in people's, minds. It's always in the back of their heads whenever they're making decisions. And sometimes it's a subconscious influencer in decisions they make or recommendations they make because they're like, gosh, I don't want to be too bold here and, put myself out on a limb or on the chopping block if it doesn't go well. And so it's something that I'm really going to, I think about encouraging my team throughout this year. It's every time you walk into a meeting or every time you open your mouth, every time you make a recommendation, do what you believe is right. We hire great people and smart people because of the fact that we believe and trust that they have the expertise to lead us down the right path. So make those recommendations based on what's best for the business, no matter what cycle you are in your job and your career, how stable or unstable you feel in terms of job security, how, unsure you feel about whether you know the true right path. If you have the right, construct and infrastructure to get you there, go in boldly, don't hedge. And that's where we even did that with our own theme. It was a little ironic because we had 3 different options and we were going to walk, Steve through all of them. And we were about to walk in the door. I was like, wait a second. I'm like, guys, we're going to pitch the theme that we have no doubt, we have all the conviction in the world is the right theme. We know it in our heart of hearts and in the data that we have, everything combines together to make the right recommendation. Why are we taking an hour and talking about 3 things when we're really should be focused on pitching one? And we did, and we pitched the theme in 7 minutes. And he was all over it and loved it and was more motivated, I think, by our conviction around a great idea and the power of that than anything else. And I think as marketers, we've got to do that more often because people are looking for us to lead. They're not looking for us to waffle or waver, and we've got to be confident to help business move forward. And so that's
love it.
That's a day-to-day application, I would say.
Such a great example of sort of, over the years, the best ideas as an agency that we've sold, it's when we walked in with one.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And it's like, it's all on the table. Well, do you have anything else? We don't have anything else that's better than this. So buy this or, I guess we'll be seeing you. So anyway, we'll take a quick break and when we come back, we'll get maybe a little bit more into the weeds, maybe not. Stay with us.
Hey, it's Drew. I wanted to use this break to ask you a single question. Are you a courageous marketer? Do you have the courage to go to your board of directors and say, marketing could drive the growth of this company? We just need 3 times the budget. Do you have the courage to take the big idea that you already have and extend it internally and externally through influencers, through the media, through all of your content? If you're a courageous marketer but aren't sure how to roadmap all of this, I have a big idea for you. It's called Renegade Thinking. It's a program that we've developed and work with exclusively for B2B marketers, generally at large companies. And I want to give you my cell phone, 917-679-8852. Just text Renegade Thinking to 917-679-8852, and we can talk about how you can cut through.
Okay, we're back, and my guest continues to be Sarah Kennedy, CMO of Marketo. And we were talking about fearless, and I love this notion of conviction, that you had the conviction to go into the CEO, say, we have one idea, we know it's right, hey, what do you think? And of course, you got the buy-in, and that's just such a great reminder for everyone. If you're selling ideas, go big or go home, but really go big and believe in an idea enough that you could just present one. Otherwise, you really don't believe in the idea. So that's right. I can't emphasize that point enough. All right. So you sell this idea in, you have conviction that it's going to work for you. How do you then sort of roll this out, if you will, internally and externally so that it becomes, again, and this is a big beef of mine, is that sometimes brands launch ideas and they don't make a reel. They don't do something that brings it to life. So it just ends up being a word as opposed to something much bigger.
Yeah, I think that's a constant daily struggle, but also part of what makes our job here so fun. And I think for us at Marketo, that being a conference theme, all of a sudden you can get really sucked into the logistics and the grind of planning a conference. And like you said, it just becomes kind of a throwaway word that shows up on, the opening video and on all the materials at the event. And wow, that's it. And this is one that we actually had so much passion, and I personally did, that I refused to let that be. And I think our team started rallying around sort of two separate ideas that I think we brought together as one, which is through something called Fearless 50, which is a new recurring annual, it's a class of leaders that we are going to be bringing together, so that this is something that isn't just a conference theme, but it really is a mantra for us, like I mentioned, but also a mantra for our customers. And so we launched what my team, I think, was a little horrified at my idea of, well, we should just let people hashtag a video. I want it to be informal. I want there to be no barrier to sharing these stories, because even if we do nothing else with it, like let's say it's a total flop, at least those really cool stories are out there. And candidly, I mean, those are the things that are really drawing me toward this event and beyond, is the stories and the people behind them. And so this is a group of people that others nominated, they nominated and posted on every social media channel. And it's been, ironically, a bit of a manual effort for us to collect all of those, review them. And really, it's been such a fun part of the entire event. For me, it's the most fun part, is that. And so to me, that the things that make it real aren't what we do with it at the event as much as what our customers are able to do with it as a platform, or even our partners. And that's the other cool part of that for me, is we're connecting our partners and customers in a different way. And some of them are one and the same in many respects, but it's just what the common bond that brings people together are those stories. And I think that's, it's not a new concept. It's not like we came up with something brand new. This has been around for, a decade in social. It's just, you just see in viral content sharing. And it's been one of those things that I've enjoyed so much watching it grow on its own, because the same passion we had when we created it and gave birth to it is exactly what's carried it forward, with others taking it on and really carrying the torch and sharing their own stories. And so we hope that is something that isn't just an event related thing. That's something we want to carry throughout any given year as we move forward as a business.
Okay, that's interesting. So in a recent interview, you mentioned that you walked into the middle of 2018 planning, which you sort of got you in the weeds in a way that you wouldn't have been necessarily at another time. And then when you came up for air, you mentioned your priorities were brand and the Marketo story. I'm curious what you've deduced now about the Marketo story, and or have we just been talking about that all along, and that's what Fearless has been, is sort of
beginning of that. Good question. I think it's the beginning of that story, but I think the Marketo story specifically goes so much deeper, and it is, the sentiment of the fearless marketer is one thing, and I think that's the heart and soul of why people get excited to be here and to sell and support the CMO and the marketing organization in every company, because Marketo is unique because we are all about and only about marketer first in everything we do. And so that's one thing that I think is powerful and has continued to always, it's actually been true since the origination of this company. And it was part of, Phil's original vision, and it's something that is not changed as the leadership has evolved, because that's so special and unique to who we are. But the platform story and really where that's headed, that's what I need to spend, honestly, even more time on, because the power of this platform, I mean, there's 500 billion triggers that are processed by this platform in a given year, and we don't really talk about that. And when we think about just growing into our own shoes and our own britches, if you will, in a Texas term, we're not telling as powerful of a story yet. I think that the pieces are there, but we haven't pulled it all together. And if I'm being transparent as a fearless marketer, that's where we've got work to do, because the data is there, the performance is there, but we've just not focused on telling that story in a way that's meaningful to, the Fortune, let's say 1,000. And we have a lot of those as customers who understand what we do and have gotten that story. But we haven't told that story at scale and as compelling of a way as what we are in the process of reworking to do. And it's not really a story. It's just telling the truth. It's just telling it in a different order, I guess, if you want to think about it that way.
One of the things that, so years ago, I interviewed John Miller, who was one of the founders. I wrote an article on him on Fast Company, and he and I stay in contact. And the thing that surprised me and was actually shocking at the time was that how good Marketo was at content marketing for themselves. Right. In fact, better It's just funny. The irony of ironies is that at the time, Eloqua, Marketo, and HubSpot were the three best content marketers out there.
Right.
And I'm curious, as you've come into this, because that's quite a bit different than what you had at Sabre. What have you seen about your content program that you sort of like, and where do you see, what's Content 2.0 look like?
Well, actually, that was the most fascinating thing I learned probably week one on this job, maybe even before I started, was as good as this company and this marketing team is at content marketing, we were severely underinvesting in it, which to me just meant, oh my gosh, what could we do if we doubled, tripled our investment in content marketing? And we have started to do that. I've put a new leader in place over all of content and thought leadership. And I think, for me, it was actually something I made a name for myself at Sabre doing that in a much smaller industry, but it is absolutely, if anyone in the industry could ever speak to marketing more effectively than Marketo, I would love to see them step up. And we have so much opportunity, and we also need to be more creative in what we share. And I think there's a long legacy of success in doing that effectively from, the last really 5, 6, 7 years here. But, little things that we can do to share other parts of the journey that a marketer goes through that may or may not be, exactly directly tied to our core platform, but always circle back to engagement and how you engage with customers. I think we've got a bigger voice and a bigger role and just a responsibility to be investing and sharing more there. And just a small example of that is, as of last week, we decided, why are we not filming a documentary of how to plan something as beastly as Summit? It's a massive undertaking that very few companies, if any, of our size ever even attempt. And the ones that are, 10x our size that do attempt something as big as this don't share the sometimes, ugly behind the scenes, as well as, extremely energizing and inspiring things that happen behind the scenes. Then those, the 30 seconds before Steve ever walks on stage in front of 7,000 people to, what happens when, something goes wrong with AV that's unexpected. And I think every marketer can appreciate that kind of information in those stories, because again, those are the most interesting ones, because that's where you really learn what's going on and what to do in your own world. And I think us being more creative in how we tell the story of marketing at Marketo, and to do so in a way that's, again, unafraid to be not perfect all the time, because we aren't. We're going through the same cycles of decision making, climbing the same hills as marketing changes even faster in a given year. We're all facing that. It's not like the world of marketing and the tech that goes with that stands still for us just because we're Marketo. So I love the idea that our customers and us are solving for the same problems now. We're no longer just light years ahead. We are in many respects, but we have a platform to share what we're experiencing more so than any other because of the brand that those who came before us built. And we've got to use that in a way that connects with people, it educates them, and it inspires them to do things in a different way and maybe share their own stories.
So for the CMOs who are listening and other marketers who are listening who aren't going to be able to make it to the Marketo the Marketo Nation Summit, what counsel, advice, a couple words of wisdom do you have for them as we wrap up the show?
I would say invest as much time and energy as you can in creating a safe space and an environment where your team can be fearless. And that may be cheesy. Maybe people think they've heard that a million times over, but I really don't. I know that I believe that in my heart of hearts, but the practical reality of where I spend my time, my calendar doesn't always match up with that, right? And your calendar is a reflection of your priorities, as we all know and have read in many books. And if you don't make the time and you don't show your team and set the example and lead by example of what it means to take risks and to be comfortable with the outcome, knowing that at the end of the day, if your motivation is purely altruistic and it's for what's best for your customers and what's best for your business and your company, it doesn't matter what happens next. That's your job as a marketer. And so I think teaching your team that and showing them that in the actions that you take is the most critical role that we play, no matter who's in our chair a year from now, 10 years from now. I think that's what they will see and remember, and that's the kind of marketing generation that will come after us. And so that's, to me, what I would share with any of them.
Very cool. And I'm going to attempt to wrap up some of the things that I heard you say. And
before you do, one other thing, we also have a promo code for anybody that is listening that hasn't attended Summit yet, but it's Renegade 400 for $400 off on attending Summit this year.
There you go. You heard it here. So, all right. So I'm going to attempt to wrap up and then get, so here we go. So here are the sort of, I'm going to say 5 or 6 things that I really pulled from this episode. If you're a marketing leader, the first thing you have to do is build the right team. And that was so clear. And we rarely talk about that on the show. Then up next is getting the positioning and really looking at that and finding that brand story. Obviously from there, you have the story. Now you have to, you build it. Well, first you have to sell it in. And what I loved when Sarah was talking is the conviction that she had to present it to a CEO, with one idea. And I just, that is a fearless example of selling a fearless idea. I also want to point out that that doesn't work if you don't have a CEO who is supportive, and a CEO that will provide the safe space that you talked about towards the end. It's just not possible. And I'm sorry to say that, but CEOs who say, I only want you to spend money on things that will absolutely deliver, I only care about revenue, are not going to get you there. And that's a problem, for the future wannabe CMO. One of the things that we sort of touched on that I think is important, particularly if you're selling a service, as Marketo is, try to be your best case history. And what I loved about the example you said about doing a video of the conference, warts and all, is that you guys are really good at doing these events. And so you're showing that you're good at it. You're using your tools to help you do it. And you're being fearless in the sense that you're actually going to show maybe a few things that didn't work out as well as you planned. So I love all of that. And with that, I want to, Sarah, thank you so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
And to all my listeners, thank you so much for sticking with us. This is just a wonderful ride. And we keep just cranking out these episodes every week, and I'm so grateful that you're listening. Feel free to share with your friends. It always helps. Sharing is caring. And until next time, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.